Hey, it's Chuck. Today, I hater Stu Mandel, absolute piece of trash. And Ryan Day, man, if you asked Ryan Day the color of the sky, Ryan Day might answer you something like, I saw a plane yesterday, and I've been really unhappy with the shrinking seats on planes, but the chair in my office is really comfortable. I'll have to watch the film. He might answer you that if you asked him what the color of the sky was. But he answers the questions to Cameron Teague Robinson. Let's get it.
And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
And welcome in. Thanks so much for joining me on the weekend show. Appreciate you guys as always. And I love the weekend show. I don't know if it's just that I'm in a better mood because it's the weekend, or maybe it's a little less structured and it's just a lot more fun for me. And last time we went for like an hour and a half. So we'll see what we do today. It is 11:40 at night as I'm starting this, so I doubt we'll be an hour and a half, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And we do got a serious story that I want to hit. Not stories. It's just a little segment. It's kind of serious. It's kind of sad. It was sad for me to take the notes on it, but it's something that I feel like we should say, and we should honor this guy. And I just want to go over that. So we'll do that at the end of the show for the diehards, because not everybody makes it to the end of the show, and I understand. We're all busy, right? But we had not a ton of news going on in the Buckeye world, and then all of a sudden, word dropped that David Sanders was in town. Now, they kept this one on the wraps really, really tight. So David Sanders flew up, having a visit, and this is his second visit in 5 weeks. He's going to be leaving tomorrow, Sunday. It's Saturday night. I'm recording this. He's going to be leaving Sunday afternoon, and that was a surprise. So he's got an official visit in June, and coming up and sneaking in and getting this second visit in 5 weeks. I think that we can say officially there's definitely some smoke here. There's definitely some smoke. I initially dismissed every single person who said that we had a shot at David Sanders. And I dismissed it because I kind of have this thing about not letting myself get my hopes up, because then it hurts harder when you get your heart broken. So that was kind of my feeling on David Sanders. I wasn't going to let my hopes get up at all. And I'm a bit jaded when it comes to the top lineman and Mr. Fry. However, I think at this point, even I got to concede, someone who doesn't want to get their hopes up, that this is a very, very positive development. And if by some crazy way Justin Fry is able to land this guy, you will certainly hear my mea culpa, because I will be the idiot. I will be the clown 100%. If we get David Sanders, I'll be the clown. I'll be it. I'll take it for us, guys. I will be that clown. And Justin Fry will be incredibly intelligent and the best lineman coach I've ever seen in my life. That would be amazing, because I really think that David Sanders is not just your typical number one overall lineman. I think he's kind of like Julian Sayin. And how I describe Julian Sayin versus Aaron Nolan is, Julian Sayin to me is a once every 3 cycles type of talent. And Aaron Nolan, there's a couple of Aaron Nolans in every class. And David Sanders, I think, is a once every 3 cycle type of talent. Carter Lowe, there's a couple, 2, 3, 4 Carter Lowe's in every class. So that's kind of what I mean by that. I think David Sanders would be absolutely a starter as a freshman, and you'd have 3 years of this guy absolutely cleaning clocks. He's super athletic, very fast. He's mean, despite being a soft guy. And this is a great development. This is a really great development, and I know that they're going to pay. I mean, these guys got the NIL rolling now, and we're going to go over a story about the NIL a little later. The story kind of irritated me. I thought it was maybe uncalled for, and I didn't like the motivation behind it. But we'll go over that in a few. But we got some other visitors today. Trey McNutt was in the house. We didn't know Trey was coming. Obviously, 5-star safety, number 1 safety in the country, Shaker Heights. And he is going to come down probably, in my estimation, to Ohio State and Oregon. No surprise there. Obviously, we're really going after him hard, and Fahim Delane. I have been under the impression for a bit now that Fahim Delane was pretty close. I think that Fahim Delane, let's put it this way: if I had to bet $10 which one would sign, and I could only pick one, I'd put the $10 on Fahim Delane, despite the advantages we have with Trey McNutt. I just would. That's just the feeling I've always had throughout Trey's recruitment. I hope I'm wrong. I do. But I try to be realistic so I don't get my feelings hurt. Also, Zion Grady and Malik Autry were in town. Zion Grady is a sweet edge rusher. We were in on him early on, and it felt like it kind of fizzled off for one reason or another. You know, sometimes that happens. It just kind of fizzles off. But an absolute stud from Alabama. And you can see there, he is the – man, I got this cover in the bottom here. Well, 247 has him as the number 8 edge rusher. I believe his composite is pretty similar. But his buddy who came up with him from Alabama, Malik Autry, this is way off. So what we got here is a 6'5", 320-pound defensive tackle. And you can see the 247 rating here. He is the 34 ranked national, 34 ranked overall, and the number 4 defensive lineman. But his composite, because his on-3 rating is so crazy low, his on-3 rating is like the number 180th player in the country. The variance there is enormous. You don't see that ever usually with a guy that big. They usually got the defensive tackles dialed in when they're that size. So I'm going, how in the heck is there this much disparity? And who's right? On-3's got this guy like, you know, a solid player, a top 200 player. But there's a big difference between a top 200 player and you know, 5 stars go to number 32, right? 32 NFL teams, 32 first-round draft picks. That's your 5 stars. He's 34, so a very, very close borderline 5-star, and totally different at on-3. So I wanted to watch him, and I did, and I pulled us up some tape here so we could watch him together. Let's have a look-see. Now, he's a big dude. He is verified at 6'5.5". That's no joke. They got him verified. Well, he's unblocked there. This is a pretty quick guy at 6'5.5", 320, taking on a double team here. No. Oh, no, little guy. Oh, no, little fella. Oh, little fella. Okay, good with his hands. All right. Got a motor for a big guy. Look at this dude. Yeah, I'm leaning with 247 on this one here. I think on-3 has really messed this up. This is a dominant big dude in the middle. These are just such rare players. You know what I mean? They're just a rare guy. It's just a rare body. You can't teach 6'5.5", 320. Looks pretty lean too. I mean, that's impressive. That is impressive. So, yeah, we're gonna go with the 247 rating and not the on-3 one. That is a big dog right there, and that would be fantastic. Ziggy Grady is a beast too, beast edge rusher. We could certainly use him, and if we did use him, or if we did get him, what would that do with our 2 Indiana edge rushers we're after? And Marion Dye and slipping my head here. I don't know, but we got a heck of a class of edge rushers. If we could land him, one of the Indiana guys, Marion Dye or his smaller buddy, who's about 20 pounds lighter, The name is, like I said, it's the weekend show. I'm just chilling. Andrew Stargell, that is the offensive lineman from Georgia that we talked about last week. We watched his film. He's a little crazy. He's the one I showed my wife, and she said, "Why is he so angry?" That's just the way he plays football. It is the way he plays football. And I've talked to this dude several times now. He's absolutely thrilled to get this offer. The Buckeyes are the only big offer he's got. Like, he went from, Louisville level kind of offers to boom, the best of the best offer. And I'm not sure why. I don't understand, because I watch his tape and he looks like a guy that would be a mid 4-star and have offers from everybody. Plays 6A ball in Georgia, so an incredible league, an incredible division, and it makes no sense to me. He's got a crazy motor. He's aggressive. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I don't understand if I'm not seeing something or everybody's just missing on him, though I suspect now he's got an Ohio State offer. They're going to start piling up, but he loves Ohio State. He loves it, and he is thrilled about this. He told me one of the things he really loves is once you're done being a Buckeye, if you don't make it to the NFL, you really get taken care of with your career. Absolutely, young fella, you sure do. You sure do. You can go sell insurance or real estate or whatever you want to do, and things are going to be just fine. We take care of our own. So, they're doing a good job with him. And I think that Fry really wants him, and he's going to be in town next week. Not a surprise visit. This is a planned one. So he will be in town next week, and we'll see how that goes. But 6'4", 305, like I said, 3-star, very lowly ranked. I mean, I think his overall was something like the 600s last I checked. So not some guy who you would look to think like, okay, this is somebody who's Ohio State material, especially out of state. But the tape doesn't match that rating at all. It's not even close. And you got to think it's going to that rating's going to catch up to where he is now that the Buckeyes are in on him and they see that they've messed up. But I'm really interested in on 3. Now, they have notoriously been very inconsistent and really screwed up on a lot of rankings, much more so than 247. But they're still kind of a young company and they're getting it together. I was expecting by this point they would have some of this stuff cleared up. But to be that far off on a guy like that, that's really far off. Really far off. Coach Locke offered Jonas Walton. This is a 2026 running back from Carlton, Georgia. Top 10 running back. And that's pretty legit. This dude's 5'9", like 195. Got some good speed. I really like 5'9" running backs. I just really like that body type in a running back. Oh, yeah, I like this dude. Okay, blocking highlights. Love to see that in a running back's film. Oh, that's a slick cut. That is a slick cut. Long strider for 5'9". Yes. Another block. Stonewall. Oh, yeah. I dig him. Now we know why Coach Locke likes him. That's nice. That's real nice. Keep in mind now, this is a sophomore. We're looking at sophomore tape here. That is impressive. Ooh, got it. All right, last one. Oh, wow. That was an amazing little subtle cut there at the end. Love it. Like that, dude. Coach Locke has been hustling, man. He is hustling. And I like the 2026 offers he's put out so far. But boy, he's living in Georgia and Alabama lately. And now Malik Autry and Ziggy Grady coming up with Naeem Offord. Like, geez, absolutely just killing it down there. And some of those are going to pay off. You're not going to hit them all. You're probably going to have a lower success rate than you would in Georgia because we got more connections in Georgia, but those connections in Alabama are building. Not that it's a hugely talent rich. It has about the same amount of talent as Ohio, really, pretty close. They've come up a lot. It didn't used to be like that in Alabama. It used to be much weaker, but they've come up quite a bit. So another area to farm, and what I really love about it is how much it irritates them when we come down into the deep South and take their boys. So I like that a lot. I was doing a rebuttal to some idiot the other day. His argument was the normal argument that we hear. How is Ohio State? How does Ohio State think that they're going to have any team chemistry with all these transfers? And obviously, just a guy who's heard things or read something on Twitter and just assumes that Ohio State brought in a whole bunch of transfers. So I was going to check. Okay, it's been a while now. Where does Ohio State's transfer portal class rank now? And where do they rank in number of transfers brought in? So I was going to go do that. And I noticed that Clemson still has 0 transfers brought in, but they've lost 12. And I just can't believe it, man. We had heard for, I don't know, the last year and a half that Swinney does not want to bring in transfers. He doesn't believe he needs it. And I figured after last season that he would kind of quietly come around to this. It wouldn't be some, okay, I've changed my mind type of deal, but he would quietly come around and we would start to see some transfers coming into Clemson. Because the point is, like, it's just silly. If the rest of your competition has the opportunity to correct some mistakes and plug some holes, but you don't give yourself that opportunity, then you are self-imposing a restriction on yourself that you should not. I think we all get the logic behind it, and I'm sure he does too. So why is he doing this? Why is he digging his heels in like this? He's sabotaging his own program. I don't understand. A program that was very blah when he was an assistant coach there. I still remember his story about CJ Spiller. He was an assistant there, a young assistant there, and he wanted to recruit CJ Spiller out of Florida. And the rest of the staff was telling him, no, don't do that. Don't bother. He'll never come to Clemson. And he didn't listen. And they were ragging on him for wasting time and hours and resources trying to recruit a guy who would never come there. And he got him, of course. And that was, his attitude was, why not us? And I love coaches that have that mindset, that go into a program and say, okay, yes, this is where we are. This is how we're perceived by the nation. This is how we're perceived by high school coaches and high school players. But we don't need to be this just because that's what we are now. We can be this and shoot for it and go after it. I love it. I absolutely love it. And, I really took a liking to him very early on in his career. So he gets the job, and he turns the corner with the program. And they start becoming a really quality program. But every year they have a an Iowa or a Purdue, as it were, for in our speak, where they just kind of shit the bed and lose to somebody that they shouldn't. The term Clemsoning is born, and he oversaw all the Clemsonings, and then he finally turns the corner. They make it to 6 straight playoffs, 4 championship games, win 2 of them. In the process, win 2 championships against the Saban dynasty in its heyday. Those 4 championship games, that was so cool. Obviously, I was always rooting for Clemson in those games because I'm just a Bama hater to the core. But, it was incredible when you look at where that program was to where he took it. And now to watch this guy just stand in his own way because of his pride and his ego, it's unbelievable. I mean, those teams were great. Excellent high-end talent. Fantastic. They weren't deep. They weren't deep at all. But I just have a ton of respect for the guy. I did. I really did. And a lot of people criticize him. A lot of people can't stand him. The way he goes, his whole shtick, I get it. The religion, I know a lot of people can't stand that. And I totally understand why some people don't like him. What I like about him so much is he's not an X's and O's guy. I mean, he's kind of a bonehead, really. But it's his leadership skills that propelled him to these crazy heights in coaching. Just leadership skills and drive. He doesn't know X's and O's at all. But he was able to keep wonderful coordinators for long periods of time. And an enigmatic personality that just brought people in. It was impressive. It was so impressive. But the way this story is going to end for him is going to be so incredibly weird that a guy could rise like that and then just be his own undoing. It's not a small thing. The transfer portal gives you an opportunity to correct your mistakes that are inevitable in every program. And everybody else gets to do it except for them. Because he self-imposed it. It's crazy. It's really nuts. That program had 1 national championship in 1981. Colorado won a national championship in 1990, and nobody even knows it. Like, I hear guys who do what I'm doing, like, for a living, and I hear him talk about Colorado and Dion and say, Colorado, they've never been anything. They got good for a year or 2 with Cordell Stewart. Colorado won a national championship in 1990, and it's so forgettable that nobody even knows. And that's what Clemson's national championship was in 1981. Nobody would know it. He took this nothing program and made it into what that was. It was so nuts. But, they never should have been anything. I've been on that campus. I've been to a game there. It's tiny. It has no business being a big-time major football power. And let's be honest, it's not anymore. It's really not. It's already come and gone that fast. And I do not think he's going to get it back, even if he now changes his mind. But since their last college football playoff appearance, when they were defeated in the 2020 Sugar Bowl by the Ohio State Buckeyes, they are 20-8. Their 10-win season streak is snapped. They were 9-4 last year. 4-4 in the lowly ACC. Imagine winning 4 Big Ten games. Oh, my gosh. 4-4. It's crazy. Normally in a situation like this, the way this goes in football rules, we would say, we broke you. We broke that program. We beat them in 2020, and they've never been the same since. But the sad fact is this guy broke himself. What really makes me sad is their fans. I look at things from the fan base point of view a lot. Could you imagine how fast we would run and feel horrible doing it? But our 2-time national championship winning coach out of town, if he pulled something like he's doing for his pride and whatever goofy issue he has with bringing in transfers who want to come play for his program, we'd run them out of town so fast, man. We really would. Nobody can put pressure like we can. I mean, that would not fly, not at all. But back to the reason I bring this up. There was an article in The Athletic that I read. It didn't make me happy, but it was by Cameron Teague Robinson, and Cameron Teague Robinson covers the Buckeyes for The Athletic. And it was the most comprehensive piece on an NIL offseason with unprecedented access and total cooperation from all the main players. And the goal of it kind of was to frame Gene Smith as the hero riding off into the sunset. That was the goal of the piece. Quote, Smith sketched out a long list of donors that the Buckeyes needed to call. He passed it to the sixth-year head coach. Ryan, you need to call these guys, Smith recalled telling Day. I can answer the questions, but you're the football coach. That's kind of what we're dealing with here. And then he goes on to interview Cameron Teague Robinson, the foundation, 1870. We got Ryan Day in here. We got Schottenstein, Cardale, Mark Stetson of the 1870, Tyvis over at 1870. And basically what they lay out is the entire offseason, NIL as it currently stands, and what they're up to. It's the inside story of assembling the best roster in the country. And they gave this dude everything. Quote, the impact of Day's name popping up on a donor's phone is substantial. Even new men's basketball coach Jake Diebler has benefited from his growing fundraising duties. We have a big list of contacts, but we've had them make the calls. Because it goes further, Schottenstein said. It makes it more real. They can talk about the team and have the donor feel like they have inside access. It makes them feel part of the team, and it helps them want to donate because they're part of the family. That's certainly how it works. Donors at that level don't really want your trinkets or your autographs sent. They want access. That's true. How about Stetson from the 1870? What's he have to say? I think when you're communicating with the coach, you feel the need, and that's where you get a lot of the positives from NIL. You go across to the non-rev sports where the kids work 2 and 3 jobs to be able to live. But NIL can focus more on athletic and academic hours. Hearing that from the coach is a direct line to see the impact. I mean, this one made me feel pretty ignorant because I had no idea that the volleyball team had to work 3 jobs just to live. But, here we are. The entire country is trying to denigrate this football team. The stories have already been written should they win the national championship. Already been written. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's bought and paid for. I mean, we've already seen it. It's going to do nothing but get worse. Here's what I can't stand. Michigan wins a national championship, and you've never heard me talk about that. You'll hear me talk about them in a negative light. But I don't talk about that scandal and the legitimacy of the championship. I don't get into that because I don't need to. I'll let that sort itself out. There are arguments with concrete fact that they can't dispute that I would rather make. And those are the ones I like to do. But there's no doubt that there are many, many people who rightfully believe, listen, when your head coach is suspended during the season for what you're accused of by his conference commissioner, then it's 100% legit to question the legitimacy of that trophy, right? But we are getting lumped in with that same attitude over doing what's perfectly legal in college football. And now we got this piece here with the unprecedented access, walking them through step by step how they assembled the dream roster. Stu Mandel chimes in here. He contributes to the piece. This is probably his third hit piece. I think I've shared the other two with you. The Cincinnati Buckeye hater, Stu Mandel. Absolute piece of trash. And Ryan Day, man, if you asked Ryan Day the color of the sky, Ryan Day might answer you something like, I saw a plane yesterday, and I've been really unhappy with the shrinking seats on planes, but the chair in my office is really comfortable. I'll have to watch the film. He might answer you that if you asked him what the color of the sky was. But he answers the questions to Cameron Teague Robinson. Gene welcomed this reporter in to document this and told everybody to cooperate, and they did. I've never in my life seen another NIL offseason laid out like this thing. Behind the scenes, look at the championship team. We've seen stories like this. We've seen stories like this about coaches, and two coaches come together, and then they get the star player, and then the quarterback gets injured, and the backup quarterback is a superstar, and he develops to be a burgeoning star. And like how the championship team was assembled. Like, that's the feel of this thing. But it's all about the players that they bought in, the seniors coming back, and what they paid for them. It's all about the money. Pardon my language. It's all about the money. And I don't understand why they did this. Collectives are allowed to talk directly to recruits for the first time, simplifying the process. Quote, I think it makes us more powerful because we can talk to the portal players when they enter, Schottenstein said. There's more to transferring to Ohio State than just receiving NIL money, which is something that players like Downs and Judkins have emphasized. Still, the addition of Downs, Judkins, Howard, McLaughlin were part of Ohio State's NIL budget. That's not to say Ohio State just decided to pay every player millions of dollars or more. Though no financial terms are released, Powell said that Ohio State has roster construction priorities just like any other team. Quote, if you're the number one player in the country, it's easy to market and sell that. It's easy to give them a bunch of money. But you get these 3-star kids, maybe they don't have a big name. They aren't getting a bag. Now, don't get me wrong, they're getting a couple of dollars in their pocket, but I wouldn't call it a bag. It goes off team needs. If you're a premier defensive end, those go for more than a center. That's the nature of the business. If a team needs a premier corner, then they'll pay more for that guy than a defensive tackle. It reminds me of the NFL a little, because when free agency hits, guys will overpay for that position because that's what they need. They closed the article with a line that we've already heard from Gene, where he talks about leaving and his legacy and not winning championships. I wanted to make sure that we did everything that we could to make sure that the football team has a real chance next year. When I think about my legacy, I think about that. I hate to leave Ohio State when football is not back to winning championships. I think Gene wanted to document what he did on his way out the door because he thinks that in a couple years, there won't be this seedy aspect around what happened. And there shouldn't be. If you're asking why am I mad, there shouldn't be anything wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with this. It's within the rules. The issue that I have is everybody knows what's being said about this team, and it's incorrect. Why then are you highlighting this for everybody to see in a school that is so buttoned up with information, and you just open this up for everybody and say, we're all going to talk to this reporter for The Athletic, talk about the players like they're NFL players. Those ones are worth more than those ones. Like, what is that, dude? This is just not public information, man. This is behind closed door stuff. And as you can imagine, I got another issue. I got a big issue with Gene talking about his legacy in this piece and how he spent all this money before he left to try to ensure the football team's success, and making a joke about it, like you're some hero for spending somebody else's money. I find that very irritating. I find like you're not the hero, pal. Okay, you're not the hero because you approved spending of money that's not yours as you're walking out the door, and you don't have to balance the budget. That doesn't make you a hero. And it certainly doesn't make you a hero to open the doors to a bunch of stuff that nobody needed to know, because anybody with a brain already knows how this stuff works. They don't need to walk through it. No other school or NIL has walked anybody through this process, had their collectives talk to them, talk about the players like commodities. Like that's not something I've ever read before about NIL. A guy in a collective in a same article with the AD, the head coach, talking about players like commodities. Who's worth more than who? This is not cool, man. This is not cool at all. And if this season ends up in a national championship, it's all because of Gene's brilliance, right? That's what this piece was, man. He told them all to talk to this dude, and this is just pathetic. I came on here when Gene retired and talked about how he was a good man. He made some mistakes. He did some things I disagreed with, but all in all, I thought he was a humble, good man. What a fool I am. This is the most egotistical garbage I've ever seen in my life. It really is. It really is. And obviously, you know how this was received, right? Every hater in the world. Here's our evidence. Look what they did. This guy's talking about $1 million or more for each of these guys. You got Tyvis Powell talking about players like their NFL pieces. Schottenstein saying it allows us to talk to players as soon as they enter the portal. So there's 50 comments immediately about, I'm sure he's waiting until they enter the portal. And again, I don't have a problem with any of these guys saying anything that they said. I got a problem with the guy at the top bringing them all together and saying, guys, we're going to work with this guy. He's going to put this piece together for me, because that's exactly what happened here. 100%. This is a coordinated thing. And he said, let's work with him for this story. And it's Gene's swan song piece, how he put together the dream team. And I got to deal with the mouths, man. I got to deal with the mouths. The problem I got is as I sit here and I defend this every week. For instance, I want to show you the transfer portal class rating. Here's the top 5: Ole Miss, Oregon, Texas A&M, Alabama, and Florida State. Colorado, Texas, Ohio State, Florida, Washington. I may be on my own here, but I am so tired of this flipping narrative. And I don't think anybody would disagree that paying money to a senior to come back would be a bad thing. It's the best thing that ever came out of NIL. Getting guys to come back to develop, graduate. College fans in general recognize them. It's changed college sports in a good way. We want to recognize players. Younger guys have to wait a little longer. They get more developed physically. It's great. But let's talk about the transfers. I reviewed the top 100 teams in college football, the top 100 out of 134. There are 92 teams in the top 100 that have more transfers than Ohio State. 92 out of 100. And somehow we have been saddled with this label, and they're trying to diminish this team's efforts before they even take the field. 92 teams have more transfers than Ohio State. It's insane. It's insane. It's absolutely the opposite of what they're all alleging. And the narrative just keeps rolling. And every damn time I turn around, there's another thing. Only this time, it was co-authored by our athletic director on his way out the door. That's it. I have a theory I have a theory and I want to run it by you guys. So when Trey McNutt got that suspension for participating in the 7-on-7 during the spring, I came on and did an episode. And in the episode, I was railing against the OHSAA and Doug Ute, the president, and the previous president in 2013 or 2014, it was 2012, who was not going to. Urban was trying to get him to change the rule, and he wouldn't change the rule. And his statement was something like, "Urban knows this would kill spring sports," and just how unjust that was for them to use spring sports and basically make that the football players' problem. That they're somehow responsible for saving spring sports. If they can't remain on their own, that's the OHSAA's duty to try to get creative and fix that. It's got nothing to do with football players. And one of my arguments was there are plenty of guys who are 3-stars or 2-star guys who never got an opportunity to maybe get a scholarship, who are just on the fringe, and getting a little extra exposure might have gotten it that for them, right? That was my argument. Now, a lot of people said that they agree with me, but that argument was a bit of a stretch. That lack of exposure didn't keep anybody from getting a scholarship. And I've often thought that 7-on-7 is not really about developmental stuff, right? It's not, you develop a little, but it's more about the connections. It's about the exposure, who you meet there. It's about coaches and scouts, and that's what it's about. And it's very beneficial to be in that circuit if you are a skilled position player. And where do we lack? My question is, like, are we to believe honestly that a state that produces as much amazing talent as Ohio every year just doesn't produce them at one position? I want to talk about the vast disparity, looking at the 24, 25, and 26 class. So let's just go over a couple of the top guys at each position group. At quarterback, Ethan Grunkmeyer, top 100, Penn State. Tavian, number 1 overall in the Juck on Bucks poll. Ryan Montgomery, Georgia. Nathan Bernhardt. Running back, Jordan Marshall. Bo Marquise. 2 top 10 guys. Sean Alston next year, awesome back. Top 150 guy. Offensive line, Carter Lowe, top 30 overall. William Satterlite, top 200, went to Tennessee. Max Riley, 5-star. Sam Greer, top 150 guy. Adam Guthrie, next year, top 200 guy. Tight end, Luka Gilbert. Keenan Slow played him. Lost him in Miami. Tavian Galloway, 4-star, went to Purdue. Demarion Witten. Defensive lineman, Brian Robinson, top 100, went to Kentucky. Dominic Kirks. Cedric Works. Logan Thomas, went to Notre Dame. Linebacker, Garrett Stover. Justin Hill, Eli Lee, Sincere Johnson, Storm Mill, Jacoby Clapper. Cornerback, DBs, man. Look, this DB crew is insane. Aaron Scott, Bryce West, Dwayne Galloway, Terrion Nichols went to Kentucky. Rock Hill out of Hoban, top 10 overall next year. Vic Singleton, top 100 out of Toledo Central next year. Trey McNutt, Cody Haddad, Reggie Powers went to Oklahoma. Wide receiver, Quentin Simmons. That's a top 300 guy. Peyton Cook, that's a top 200 guy. Milan Paris, Walsh Jesuit, 450. Sean Terry, 663. The wide receivers are so far behind everybody else, it was hard to find them. Ranking the positions was pretty fun. And our DBs are currently the best position group coming out of Ohio in the last 3 cycles, followed by the offensive linemen, then the quarterbacks, then the running backs. Running backs are 4. That's usually a strong suit for the state. That's pretty cool to see. Linebackers are 5. Defensive line is 6. Tight end 7. Wide receivers, of course, last, as they always are. Now I want to read you this quote. And this quote is from Brian Stumpf, the guy that runs the Elite 11. They're getting one of the most polished passers in this year's class without a doubt. And to your point, Tavion's not being talked about enough. I think this past weekend was some of the first 7-on-7 he's had. He's not a guy that's out there every weekend and really current in the rundowns, the articles, and the top performers in the various 7-on-7 events. But again, he performs on the field, and that's first and foremost. And he was a guy, again, who popped on our radar last year at the regionals. But I think Coach Ryan Day at Ohio State had a great advantage having a son that's also a high school quarterback. So he's been out to the events a lot. Last year or two, seen a lot of these guys at the events. He got to see Tavion last year as an underclassman. I think that really accelerated Ohio State's pursuit of him. He came back and camped again in the summer, so they got early dibs on him. Being an in-state guy, it was a real fit for them. Now, this is a guy whose entire career is based around finding the most talented quarterbacks. And the very best one in the country, Tavion St. Clair, wasn't even on his radar. What's my point here? My point is, wide receiver and quarterback gain the most, stand to gain the most from 7-on-7 stuff. Had Day not been on Tavion early, would he have skyrocketed like this? I don't think so. That guy said he's not a guy that's out there every weekend in 7-on-7 events. He's not current in 7-on-7 rundowns. He's not current in 7-on-7 articles. He's not a top performer in various 7-on-7 tournaments. This is how they network. This is how they find people. The scouts. This is basically this dude's he's going off the same kind of information that the guys who get the rankings going do, right? That's how they do their rankings. They all hear this one big circle, the 7-on-7. It's all one big thing, man. And this is how they do their rankings. And if you're not involved, you're not getting ranked. And if you're not getting ranked, you're getting under-recruited. And that can very much affect your future. My point is, we actually do have the wide receiver talent, but they're underutilized because of Ohio offenses, and they're underranked and under-recruited because they've not been out in 7-on-7, and they've had nowhere to showcase their skills. Guys like Brian Hartline and Devin Smith and Anthony Gonzalez, they're here. They're overlooked and under-recruited. Those are the lucky ones. 3-star guys that got a shot to go to Ohio State. But we're about to see in the next few years, our wide receivers here in Ohio, which are the only one position statistically outlier. Like, it's just one position. It's about to catch up to all those other positions, and it will be a new development. Now that they have an opportunity to showcase their skills, they're going to climb the ranks, they're going to get recognized, and we're going to all see. And I'm putting myself on record right now. So when I see you again in 2027, we're going to go back over this, and I'm going to show you that I was right. We do have the wide receivers. They're just not getting used, and nobody's recognizing them. A little while ago, I said the biggest competition for the Buckeyes, the team that the Buckeyes were going to be going to war with for the next 5 years, was Oregon. And a couple of people really took offense to this, and they were mad at me. And I mean our people. They felt very disrespected some way, maybe that I was disrespecting the rivalry by overlooking Michigan and not saying that Michigan was the one we were going to go to war with. They told me that we need to be more focused on Michigan. I told them if I was coaching the team, I would be, but I'm not. I just look at the teams and I look at college football and I look at trends and I look at rosters. I pontificate. And my pontification is that I'm not scared of Michigan at all. They present no anxiety in me. I don't look at their roster or anything they got going on and think they're someone that's got to go in the right direction. I don't live with John Cooper fear monkey. And I think a lot of Buckeye fans have let John Cooper fear monkey creep back onto their back over the last 3 years. I don't believe Ryan Day has some Michigan monkey on his back. And I think that when we look back, over the last 20 years that it was the last 3 years that were the anomaly, not the previous 17. It was the last 3. Those were the anomaly, and the water is about to find its level again. Michigan's team next season will most likely have 3 excellent players, right? Maybe the best at their position, and Colston Loveland, their D tackle, Will Johnson. They might be the 3 best at their position in all of college football. But as we look at their roster the following year, it goes down significantly. And we're looking at their recruiting. It's horrendous. We look at their coaching staff. They're all young and new, and except for Wink, old tired retreads. Like this is not a unit or an organization going in the right direction. They'll still have a very good defense next year. They may win 9 games. They might. But I think that this will be the best opportunity they have to win. And, I just don't have that anxiety about them at all. I have much more anxiety about what's going on in the Great Northwest with Oregon. Talk about Dabo earlier. The fact that he was able to do that without being able to do what Lanning's doing now, which is checkbook all day and unlimited funds. It's pretty amazing. How many Michigan wins have you seen against Ohio State in your life? I think the number of Michigan wins you've seen against Ohio State in your life kind of changes your perspective on that Michigan monkey. Like if you're I'm 45. If you are 45 in your formative years, you were getting your ass kicked by Michigan almost every year. It's real easy to let it creep back in. And I think it's crept back in for a lot of guys my age. I can tell you my kids, they don't have that at all. They think we're going right back to whipping butt. But it's a lot of people my age that have got this like, whoa, what do you mean? How are you going to just slough them off like that? I just don't think they're that good, man. I just don't. I really don't. I also think that we're better. I also have noticed that there is about a 50-50 split now when people say, and you see this question every now and again, what would you rather do, beat Michigan or win the national championship? For me, this has always been easy, win the national championship. And I think that the answer to this question would have been 75-25 4 years ago. But now it's about 50-50 because losing it hurts so bad. And we all know it certainly does hurt so bad. Like nothing's worse. But the accomplishment of winning a national championship, I get maybe it doesn't feel better. I was going to say it feels better. I don't know if it feels better. It doesn't feel better, but it's more fun to brag about to the rest of the country. Maybe. The rest of the country doesn't care if you beat Michigan. They only care if you lose so they can clown you. But if you win the national championship, I want them both. The point is this. They're not that good. They're not. And I'm not worried about them. But I'm more concerned about the behemoth program that is being built in Eugene, Oregon. We have seen this 2 times in our lives. Clemson and Miami. What we're watching happen out there. And if you're not recognizing it, I think you're choosing not to, or you're being obtuse. And I get 3 arguments coming back to me about it. 3 different arguments. The first one is Oregon's never won a national championship. The second one is Dan Lanning lost to Washington 2 times last year. And the third one is they're soft. They're not going to be able to handle the Big Ten. Let's start with the first one. Oregon never won a national championship. I mean, they didn't even really become a real program until Mike Bellotti, in my eyes, right? And then they took the next step when his offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly, took them over. And it wasn't that long ago. And they made it to a national championship game under Chip Kelly and then under Helfrich. You remember who they played? Chip played Cam Newton. They almost beat him. And for my money, Cam Newton was the most dominant player we've seen in the last 20 years. You couldn't stop him on a 3rd and 4 or 4th and 4. You just couldn't. And they were damn close. Oregon almost beat him. Chip almost beat him. And nobody was touching Auburn that year. So that would have been one. But to me, a national championship game appearance is a hell of an accomplishment. So no, they didn't cash in. And then they played our boys in 2014, an absolute team of destiny. Like nobody, after Wisconsin and Alabama, nobody was going to beat us in that game. Nobody. You felt it right from kick, man. It was over for whoever was lined up across. I don't care what team it was in the history of college football. The Buckeyes were winning that night. Even with turnovers, still beat the shit out of them. I mean, yeah, nobody was beating us that night. The ball doesn't always bounce your way. And when I'm judging teams, I judge them by how did they play. And Oregon against Auburn, they played good enough to win a national championship that night. Do we know how many teams who've won a national championship in their history of the program haven't been to 2 national championships in the time, two national championship games in the time that Oregon has? Like, there's a shitload of programs who've got national championships but haven't been back to that game. And Oregon's been there twice in the last 20 years. So I would say that's a lot. That's some accomplishments. But really, like, I'm just talking, this all means nothing. Because at the end of the day, what they've done historically as a program has absolutely nothing to do with the team they have now and the team they're building for the future. Because we can all admit things are much different when you have the ability to purchase players in an unlimited checkbook, right? Like, we're not naive here. That certainly changes the equation of a program. I would contend that you could take the Tulsa program and turn the Tulsa program into a contender if they had that checkbook. Tell me where I'm wrong. You build a new stadium, get them some new uniforms, and the Tulsa Hurricane, they're legit now. Like, you're going to go get you some players, and it won't be long before they're number 15 in the country. Get them a new coach. I mean, come on now. The money they're spending is absurd. It's absolutely insane. Every guy that hits the portal, the dude from Michigan State, Derek Harmon. This guy entered the portal the other day. I don't even think Oregon wanted him. But USC wanted him bad. And I think that Dan Lanning went and bought that kid just so USC wouldn't get him. Let's talk about his 2 losses in last year to Kalen DeBoer, who took his team to the national championship. Come on now. He lost 2 times by 3 points each time to the team that went to the national championship in his second year as a coach. But to me, I mean, like, that to me is like, that's a compliment. No, he didn't get it done, but the way he lost those games, aggressive, going for it on 4th down, some controversial calls. To me, I don't know about you guys, but I hate playing against a coach who is going to go for it on 4th down every time. It's demoralizing as hell. And that's who he is. He's going to live or die with his guys out there and bet on them. And sometimes it's going to burn him, and sometimes it's going to absolutely steal the will of his opponent. Nonetheless, losing 2 times to Kalen DeBoer, a 3-time national championship winning coach in the NAIA, and then promptly takes Washington to a national championship game. he is a fantastic coach, as much as I bag on him down at Alabama. Here's a good one. I'll answer you this honestly. If you told me right now, Chuck, you get to pick either one of those teams and you can be a fan of either one tomorrow, and that's your team, I'm picking Oregon. I think Oregon's going to win more than Alabama moving forward. I do. Because NIL is never going away. Even if they bring this crap in-house, it's never going away. And what they are able to spend, all right, maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic. I hate Alabama. I hate him so much. God, do I hate him. So a second-year coach loses to his rival. 3 points, 2 times. Rival's awesome. Yeah, man. I think that's the sign of a good coach. It's a sign of a guy who is going in the right direction. But remember, we talked about Dabo earlier. Not a good coach, a good manager. Dan Lanning is a coach and a manager. Dan Lanning is a defensive coordinator, and a damn good one at that. So yeah, the second-year coach lost to his rival 2 times by 3 points. I think that's a compliment. Obviously, you want to win, but we got to keep a couple things in mind here. The same thing that applies to Ryan Day when people talk about how great Kirby Smart is, and we answer Ryan Day and Kirby Smart wasn't Kirby Smart at this point in his career. Kirby Smart wasn't Kirby Smart until year 6. Ryan Day's entering year 6. And why wasn't Kirby Smart that for that long? Because he wasn't a head coach before. He got dropped into Georgia as a first-time head coach. Ryan Day got dropped into Ohio State as a first-time head coach. Dan Lanning, same situation in Oregon. So just say he's a poor in-game coach after just completing his second year. I mean, come on. Smart people, effective people, they learn from mistakes. They improve their processes. Everything gets better when you're a sharp individual. And if you're watching what this guy's doing, he's a sharp individual. There's no doubt. You can't take that from him. I wish he was a dummy and he was going to screw this up, but he's not. How about not physical enough for the Big Ten? Now, we all saw them come to Columbus and whoop our ass on the line of scrimmage, right? I mean, they've got the 2 best tackles in the Big Ten. If you're just saying who's got the best pair, it's them. They put a ton of big men into the league. They have the skills. They have the pieces. And Dan Lanning that's what he is as a coach. They're going to take on that attitude of their head coach, who's, I don't think he's a badass. He's a wannabe badass, but he's kind of a skinny little frail dude. He thinks he's tough, but he's not tough. But that's his persona. And they got a bunch of kids from the South now, played a bunch of ball in the South all their lives. Some nasty attitudes. They're not some West Coast sissies, is what I'm saying. I just get so irritated. The things that Ohio State is being accused of, Oregon's actually doing, and nobody is pointing it out. Dylan Gabriel, the best quarterback. Dante Moore. They grabbed 2 quarterbacks. 2 quarterbacks that cost them probably $1 million a pop. Last year, they flipped Jeremiah McClellan from us. They're currently working on Blake Woodby. And that's just what they're doing to Ohio State. They're doing that to everybody else too. Justin Hill, Trey McNutt, 2 Ohio kids that we desperately need. They're coming into our state trying to flip our guys. Best wide receiver in the country, DeCorian Moore. He's down to 4. Ohio State, Oregon, both on that list. Jordan Davison, number 1 running back on the Buckeyes board, down to 2. Well, 4, but really 2. Ohio State and Oregon. Dante Moore, Dylan Gabriel, went down to Texas A&M. Evan Stewart, the best wide receiver in the portal. Jabbar Muhammad, the number 3 cornerback in the portal. Jamari Caldwell, the number 2 defensive lineman in the portal. 6'5", 350-pound Derek Harmon from Michigan State. Enters the portal. USC looks like the favorite. They walk in and say, no, come here, bud. We don't want you to go there. Peyton Woodward from Alabama. Beast corner. Looks like he's probably going to Oregon too. So they're getting the very best out there in the transfer portal, and they don't appear to have any restraints financially. Not a single one. It's every single kid that's good that enters the portal, they're in on him immediately. Ryan Day, the Buckeyes, they're using discretion. I mean, obviously, Ryan Day has a roster where he doesn't stand to upgrade at every position every time somebody's in the portal, like Oregon currently does. But that's not going to last long. They just beat us in the recruiting last year. They beat us. They did. Granted, they had a 29 kid class, which helped them. But it just keeps getting better and better. 2 more years, 3 more years. It won't even take 3. 2 more years with the way they're working the transfer portal. Their talent composite will be right with Ohio State and Georgia and Texas. Right there. Keep in mind, these guys are walking into next season as a top 5 team. That doesn't happen often at Oregon, man. That happened under a couple magical seasons where they ran that offense that nobody could handle. And then Helfrich kind of had a little bit of that too with Mariota. But they're walking in now off of a 2-loss season where, frankly, they don't deserve that. But you can just see what's going on, man. You can see. It's tough. And the whole point here is unlimited checkbook. He's got mojo. They really love him. Recruits love him. And he runs a chill program. The guys out there love it. They really do. They love it. It's going to be tough. And I really think that we're fixing for we'll call it a 5-year war. A 5-year war with Oregon over supremacy in our conference. It's certainly not Michigan. That's for sure. Do you know that Dylan Gabriel has 50 starts under his belt? 50 starts, and this dude's still playing college football, entering a season with 50 starts under his belt, 14,000 yards, 125 touchdowns, 26 picks with a 159 career passer rating. That's nuts. That's nuts. And I just, what we're seeing here is very rare and unique. We're watching a program kind of ascend from second-tier status to elite status, just like we saw with Miami forever ago and Clemson. Coincidentally, hold up. Check this out. Remember when I told you I wasn't going to say earlier when I was talking about Clemson that we ended Clemson? Well, we ended Miami, right, in the national championship game. They've never been the same since. And Clemson hasn't been the same since that 2020 Sugar Bowl. And those were the 2 previous programs I'm comparing Oregon to. I don't know, guys. I kind of like it. I kind of like the way that lines up. Does the weekend show suck? I don't know if my laid-back approach on the weekend show is any good. I feel like this is not a very good show. Maybe I'll just trash this one. If you guys knew how many shows I had unreleased, the unreleased files, maybe in 10 years from now, if I have an actual show, like, I don't know what an actual show is. I don't know. Maybe in 10 years, I'll have these unreleased files and I'll just flood them. I got a lot of unreleased shows. Have you guys, anybody followed this Iowa story? The Iowa gambling story? This Iowa, I don't know. We'll just call them the Iowa FBI, right? They took this geolocating software from, like, you know how when you sign up for a gambling app, they need your geolocating software because you can only gamble in certain states, so they have to know exactly where your phone is. Well, they're not the FBI, but I'm just going to call them the Iowa FBI, DCI. That's their name, the DCI. They went and got this equipment, this technology, and they went to the campus of Iowa in Iowa State and just held that son of a gun up. They held, and they tracked down everybody who was gambling, right? And they wanted to find if any of the students who played sports were gambling. Obviously, that's against the law. You can't do that. So they find a bunch of guys, they bust them, and everything ends up getting thrown out because you can't do that. That's not how you do that. You got to get a warrant, and then you can go find. It's got to be a specific thing. You can't just go walking around with your geo tracker and say, okay, that guy over there is breaking the law. Let's go get him. Not the way you're allowed to do that. So now all these athletes from Iowa and Iowa State who've been reinstated, but they missed out on a lot of stuff. One guy missed out on the combine, and it sucks, man. It really sucks for them. Now, I don't feel terribly bad for them because you're not supposed to be gambling when you're a college student, but the way they went about this was so incredibly illegal. They would have had to have probable cause that someone was committing a crime, go and got a warrant to get that technology, and that's how they could have done it. They didn't do that. They were just totally indiscriminate. And the athletes are going to win this case for sure and get a ton of money from this Iowa DCI. This story's been going on a long time, and I have avoided reading it at all costs because it just sounds boring. I don't know why, but all right, here's my story that's kind of sad. Let me sit up and pay some respect here. When they built the McDonald's on High Street towards the end of the Woody Hayes era, they wanted to tie it into Buckeye football, so they thought it would be a good idea to erect a 30-foot high Buckeye football player out in front. They got a hold of Coach Hayes, and they said, Coach, we built this giant Buckeye out in front of the McDonald's, and we want to know what number we can put on him. Woody told him 96. I'm never going to use that one again. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Kelvington is the professor of military services and leadership at The Ohio State University. The lieutenant colonel is a bad dude with 14 deployments under his belt. Ohio State has 7 Heisman trophies, 6 total winners, as Archie Griffin, still the only 2-time Heisman Trophy winner. But it only has 2 Heisman trophies. To be exact, it's called the Rick Hausman Silver Bullet Award. And the Rick Hausman Silver Bullet Award is given out to the top cadet in the ROTC program at The Ohio State University for exemplary leadership, grit, and determination. The trophy is named after Henry Richard Hausman Jr., Rick Hausman, a Hilliard High School standout football player who made his way onto the Ohio State Buckeyes' historic freshman class of 1967. A class that would later have 11 consensus All-Americans, a class that went on to win the 1968 National Championship and forever be known as the Super Softs, a legendary Ohio State team thought by many to be the best Ohio State team ever. But Rick Hausman wasn't a Super Soft, and he wasn't an All-American. Rick was just a walk-on. And Rick wasn't at that 1969 Rose Bowl when those Super Softs won the national championship in come-from-behind fashion against the defending national champion, USC Trojans. 27-16, go Bucks. Rick loved being a Buckeye, said Fred Owen, a Hilliard classmate. He loved being a Buckeye and he gave it up. The country was at war and he felt a calling. He went to Woody Hayes and he told him how he felt. Coach Hayes, a very well-known supporter of the United States military, gave Rick his blessing and assured him when he came home, his spot on the team would be there waiting for him. So Rick turned in his jersey, number 96. And he turned down that trip to Pasadena and all the good times that were surely had by his teammates. And he shipped off to boot camp. And then to hell, in the middle of a war zone. May 27th, 1969, Private First Class Hausman, providing cover in a firefight for his wounded comrades, was killed in action. He'd been there just 71 days and he was 19 years old. Rick's a hero, said Lieutenant Colonel Kelvington. It really felt to me like when you looked around campus, there really wasn't anything around about Rick. That's when the Lieutenant Colonel Kelvington decided he had to create the Rick Hausman Silver Bullet Award. And each year, a new name would be added to a dog tag on that trophy, leaving a legacy for future cadets by the young Buckeye who gave it all. There's a saying, a man dies two deaths, his physical death, and then the one when nobody ever hears his name again. It's just my way of remembering Rick and making sure that the second death doesn't happen. That his name continues and the people understand not just his name, but the story behind it. May 3rd, in the atrium of the Ohio State House, 17 Ohio heroes were honored as part of the induction into the Ohio Military Hall of Fame. Among the inductees this year, Silver Star recipient, Private First Class Henry Rick Hausman Jr., a Buckeye hero and legend who is definitely not going to die a second death. So I wanted to share this honor of Rick Hausman and the 16 other Buckeyes who were inducted this week, and send a big thank you to Lieutenant Colonel Mike Kelvington for creating the Hausman Award. I think it's awesome. I think it's a beautiful tribute, and a thank you to his family member who sent me this story. And every time I see a Buckeye in 96, I'm going to think of the Hausman Trophy, and I think Rick would be pretty happy about the future superstar currently sporting his number. Thanks for listening.